Ideas for Impact, a new podcast where innovation meets sustainability head on. Let's take a fresh look at how we do business. Changemakers are innovating solutions to some of the toughest challenges we face in our world. In the process, they are creating their own mark on industry. Our guests are rebels with a cause. They are tearing down barriers, redefining success, and leaving a mark on their industries. Our guests are the disruptors who refuse to settle for business as usual. Join us to unravel the lessons learned behind their failures and their triumphs and uncover the hidden opportunities for positive change. Co-hosted by me, Joanna Buczkowska-McCumber, and my friend, Deborah Host. It's no secret that many learning spaces in schools and daycares are far from what we'd consider sustainable or inspiring. A concern magnified by the prevalence of fast furniture, inexpensive, low-quality items that are quickly bought and discarded. But amidst this unsettling trend, one company has been trying to change this. Enter Natural Pod, founded by Bridgitte Alomes, a company on a mission to revolutionize learning spaces for young individuals. Natural Pod isn't just another furniture manufacturer. It's a benefit company and a certified B Corp, aligning its operations with the highest standards of social and environmental impact. The belief at the heart of the company is really that learning spaces should be the product of intentional conversations and collaborations, fostering environments where both students and educators are not just present, but engaged, inspired, and eager to be there together. They're advocating for a future where every child has access to a learning environment that's not only safe, but enriching, a space that supports their educational journey while also respecting our planet. Join us as we explore how Natural Pod is turning this vision into a reality, one sustainable learning environment at a time. Hi, Bridgitte. It's so good to have you here.
Wonderful to be here, Joanna, and great to be here today, and especially after getting to spend some time with you at the B Corp Champions Retreat last week in Vancouver.
That was really fun. It was a good time traveling all across Vancouver. Well, let's get started. Let's get right into it. We'd love to have you share the story behind the inception of Natural Pod.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, it's interesting that everybody starts things in typical ways, and I'm one of those. I certainly didn't start my career in a sustainable space. In fact, I thought I was going to be a journalist, a doctor, and then a dancer, and then ended up in marketing. I mean, of all things. But, I was kind of really caught off guard when I had my first child, my son, Ark, who was actually poisoned by one of his toys. In that moment, it was kind of like it wasn't kind of like, it was a significant aha moment that really changed the course of my life and was the catalyst that actually began Natural Pod in the way of being curious about materiality, where it comes from, what it's made of, what else can be. Will it go back to the earth? What are the learning outcomes? And I kind of did a bit of a deep dive, and fast forward today, we've impacted over 18,000 learning environments and over 1 million students. And it was that aha moment that for me, that really kind of kickstarted this journey.
That's amazing. And like, it's always those moments in time that, you have these experiences where you just realize that the way things are done, whether it's in your kids' lives or in, just the healthcare or education or elsewhere, that it hasn't really been innovated or changed for so long. And certainly doesn't necessarily consider the well-being of the people that are using those spaces or products. I'd be super curious to obviously you've been in the sustainability world for quite a bit of time now. How do you define sustainability at Natural Pod?
Well, I mean, sustainability is constantly evolving and changing because it's kind of like the only constant in life is actually change, right? So when we're planning and thinking about what sustainability could be, it's important to be adaptable to change, but always being authentic and having that integrity from the beginning to end. Like, why does it matter? And choosing more consciously than just over convenience. So for us, it's about sustainability has been a part of our DNA from the very beginning. And that doesn't mean just like sustainable materials. It means manufacturing locally here in British Columbia. It means everything's flat packed for low carbon footprint. It means sharing the story with educators and students so the product becomes sustainable through the life cycle of being in a learning environment, which, it's really designed to be there forever and have that continuity of care. It's going beyond the typical standards. So particularly in our industry, we're currently the only certified B Corp furniture manufacturer in education currently, which tells you something. There's a lot of room for improvement and growth. But for us, I think we really look at sustainability in a way where it's very deep and very long and very wide, and really ensuring that we're being innovative and progressive and always challenging the status quo. Is there a way we could do this better? Is there a different way? Is there a new way? And never getting complacent. So that's kind of what really means it for us. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the word certified organic has become a little bit too overused. And so sustainability for us is deep and long and wide.
I think you just said a lot of things. And one of the things that I heard that stood out to me is something that I've experienced when I've tried to run a mission first business, and that's price point. So I'm curious, as you've been growing throughout the years, how did the impact that you wanted to create, the environmental standards that you wanted to uphold to, challenge the price point that you needed to have in order to be competitive with your customers?
Well, it comes down to value, right? At the end of the day, and looking at life cycle. And when you're investing in learning environments, which is really for our change agents of the future, majority of materiality that's out there in the world currently, and there's some definitely some great innovation and progression that's happening, but it's not designed to last, but beyond 5 to 10 years from a life cycle standpoint. So fast furniture is one of the most challenging areas in education. In fact, the amount of landfill when products are no longer needed is quite astonishing. And so when we're looking at pricing, it's important to be meeting people where they're at and understanding that it's not necessarily always about making money. So for us, we really focus on impact and growth, and then finding a solution, because our products do more than one thing, that's still a viable, affordable option. And you'd be very surprised how affordable our solutions actually are, because you don't need as much product to achieve the same level of learning outcomes in a space. And in terms of manufacturing it locally, we have the wonderful ability to be able to support that production, but also manage those costs and be very clear about the supply chain, which gives us some strength in supporting our customers. I mean, we service everything from non-for-profit, public school systems, all the way through. And no client that we've ever worked for, we haven't been able to find an incredible solution for. It comes down to understanding value, the life cycle, and the impact that you're trying to have in the space.
And so with that, have there been any challenges at any point where you've had to really kind of like think twice or reconsider whether or not you could maintain these high environmental standards?
There has not been a moment in time where I have honestly swayed. And I think that's because of that aha moment from the very beginning. And my integrity and as a leader, and of course the team here at Naturopod, it really does matter to us. So at the end of the day, you can start to begin to cut corners in different capacities, but this is something I just don't really believe in. I mean, I know a lot of businesses face similar challenges and have to make different decisions and considering some of those parts. But at the end of the day, when it's your brand and you're living and breathing it and you're servicing the children of the future and seeing them in learning environments, there's just no compromise. To be really honest with you, I mean, there'd be many other easier ways to do this, right? For sure. More efficient ways in terms of using different materiality, more profitable ways at the end of the day. But we have found a sustainable solution from a business standpoint as well as materiality that really sets us apart.
That's great, Bridgitte. And I think a testament to that, like that passion and staying true to what you're trying to create in the world. It is important. And I think what we see across the ecosystem too is a lot of companies that feel that tension a lot and have to, come back to that original, like, this is why we created this business or this is why we created this program. There's a real purpose there that is driven by impact. To that point, I think would love to hear more about, obviously you have somewhat of a, a technical product in the sense that you're creating built environments for educational purposes and learning purposes. What goes into that design process? What goes into that development process for you at Natural Pod? Maybe talk us through what that would look like for those that are listening that might not be familiar with this type of work.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes down to product development and creating environments or creating a product in a way that is really customer facing, I knew inherently that, this discussion wasn't about, me or Natural Pod. It was about the customers that we're serving. And in our case, it's about educators and children. So all of our products were born out of a conversation, right, from the very beginning. And I remember I met a fantastic client here in British Columbia who kind of really gave me this idea and said, Bridgitte, I'd love a table for a learning environment that could also be a stage. And that made me really think about, okay, the functionality, like where we're in a space, what else could it be? And what are the multiple purposes? And then I was inspired to think about a bench that, we're using benches that could become balance beams and boats and ramps and a shelf and not just a chair. So fast forward today, we have 450 SKUs and every product has a story because of a conversation either with an educator or a student. And, we weren't trying to decide what products a customer might want. You know what I mean? And which I think is an interesting part. We often develop, oh, look at this cool product, right? This would be awesome. People will love this. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, they need to be servicing it and using it and really enjoying it. And there's something so satisfying about saying, hey, this loft was designed by Margot, or this came from Hugo, or this, Charlotte helped us with this. But what it also challenged us to go a little bit deeper into that is to think about durability, functionality, obviously environmental sustainability, and then considering the sourcing around that. And then really, how is it going to transcend learning and not necessarily be age dependent? Often with learning environments, particularly with product design, things are very age specific, early learning, preschool, schools. And we really wanted to have timeless products that have that continuity of care. Think almost like Frank Lloyd Wright, beautiful furniture, timeless classic design. That is a canvas for a learning environment. And then the color comes as student art and work. And knowing that educators wanted something more calm, more beautiful, have more reverence and peace. And they were really our true inspiration and still are today.
I've seen your Natural Pod classroom setups, and I'm like, I want to go sit in there and I want to go work in there. They're not only functional, but very beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So Natural Pod is a business that has positive social and environmental impact. There's both this internal impact within the business itself and an external component that has impact that leads into its user. And it's interesting for me because within the last year, we've transitioned our 3 children from a public school to a Montessori environment. And the Montessori environment reminds me a lot of, there's a lot of similarities between what you see in that environment and the products that Natural Pod has. And I'm sure you work with Montessoris all over the place, maybe even in the school where my children go. But what I'm interested in hearing is does one have more weight within the business in terms of decision making, whether that's with future growth strategy or even just a current everyday, this is how we go about conducting day-to-day business? Is there more weight given to the end user, that social impact that comes along with the educational value of integrating a natural built, slow furniture landscape? Or are you no, our top priority is environmental standards and that is that?
Well, there's a couple of things within that you're asking, Deborah, and I wanted to share. And firstly, reflecting back on the Montessori environment, there's different pedagogies such as Montessori, Waldorf, Reggio. Reggio is an amazing place in Italy that's inspired a lot of learning environments. But majority of our work actually isn't in those areas, which is kind of interesting. And I say that because we're trying to ensure that every student, regardless of where they're located, regardless of the curriculum or pedagogy, has access to a beautiful learning environment. So it's not always the people that you would expect to have this, which is amazing. I mean, it's kind of a beautiful thing in a way. Yes, obviously it kind of connects back to Montessori, but at the end of the day, any curriculum, any pedagogy can work with these learning environment solutions because it's a tool, right? It's a tool for a space to execute regardless of where you're located. So that was an important factor for me to make sure that it does transcend all. And then in terms of the business practices, I think what is really different about working in this capacity is often community and educators and parents, which often are and aunties and uncles. I mean, everyone has a child in their life of some capacity, whether you have your own personal children or you're an auntie and uncle or friends and so forth. But is really about engaging community. And with education, there are multiple decision makers that you need to consider in the built environment. It's one thing to work with a decision maker who's making the purchasing, but it's another to understand that the end user who's using the space at the end of the day needs to understand why they have it, what it's important to do. And I have witnessed, which is kind of a reason why I'm really dedicated to this, is new materiality arrive in a learning environment given to an educator who's like, well, this is great, but what do I do with it? When you think about education, a lot of materiality is quite scarce in most learning environments. So getting something net new in your space is quite exciting and amazing and needs to be celebrated. But often and not with, areas of convenience, which we are in a bit of a convenience culture, as we all know, is important. So I would say from a business standpoint for us, we really focus on from the beginning, middle to end, and also incorporating the students where possible. As much as we are allowed to, we love to ask the students, what do you want to see in your learning environment? And most often than not, it's way different than what we think that we want in those spaces. The other thing to consider here is that we're all children at heart. We don't stop playing. And Dr. Stuart Brown, who wrote this fantastic book called Play, and I often refer to it because it's very simple, it's very clear. So whether we're 8, 18, or 88, we don't stop playing. And so when you're thinking about from a business standpoint and learning environments, we've got to have some fun here. We've got to play together and get in the sandbox and unpack what's possible. But at the end of the day, I promise you, budgets are one of the biggest concerns in education, and you have to meet them where they're at. And I love to say to them, look, tell me from the top down, what is your FF&E, which is furniture and function and equipment budget to solve this holistic learning environment solution? And let us look through what works, what doesn't work, what we can repurpose and reuse, because we must always repurpose what we already have before we get net new. And then we look at providing a holistic solution so it doesn't become about a product. When we're product purchasing rather than looking at a solution, it's a very different conversation. So hopefully that answers some of your questions, but it's a very different business model, but one that I really love because you can get multiple stakeholders involved and get really inspired. And then how they adopt it later is incredible because when you're buying Naturopod, you're not buying it again. You know what I mean? In 5 years' time, it's a long-term investment, right?
Yeah, I mean that really like changes the model and also the how you talk about value. I'd imagine as you go out there talking to educators or school boards or others around the value that Natural Pod can provide to a learning environment, which I think is very different than somebody that's trying to sell you the next thing that you need in your space, and maybe you need to repurchase every 2 years because it's breaking or not functional anymore.
Well, it's interesting though, because our industry for many, many years has been catalog driven. And catalog driven, while that's wonderful as a resource, it doesn't allow you to look up and across. Everything's about pretty pictures and oh, I love this. This looks great, but not really considering the purpose. So having that conversation can be frustrating for people at times. It's like, what do you mean? I just want to order 4 things. And I'm like, hang on, well, but what are you using those 4 things for? And what's the purpose of that? And then they go, wow, this person's really really curious because I want whatever you bring into your space for our children to be meaningful and not just another thing in there that you go, what am I going to do with this? And that comes back to sustainability. What's the purpose of having this here and how am I going to enjoy it and use it in my space?
For sure. And so reflecting on all your own journey, when you look back and you've been building Natural Pot for a bit of time, what were some of the pivotal moments for you in building Natural Pod?
The pivotal moments for me has been a constant practice of prioritizing passion without fail and perseverance and understanding that I need to collaborate at all levels. And then, for me, staying true to your values through whether it's through a challenging time, whether it's, most recently through a pandemic, and then looking at partnerships and mentorship to support you through that journey, stakeholder engagement, your community, your educators, your students, being transparent, I think is important, and communicating some of those challenges when they come up, because they do. Life is constantly changing, as we talked about at the beginning of the call. And I do believe that each and every day we learn something new. I really have navigated and encouraged my team, know what you know and know what you don't. And then how do we grow from that? Because building a business that really is committed to positive change takes practice, it takes perseverance, and takes passion, and takes looking at things and being challenged by the status quo and how can we do things differently. There's many moments where I get curious and I start to unpack something and I come back and I go, well, why am I doing this? What is this all for? And then I know and remember that I need to go into one of my learning environments and see, not one of mine, but what I'm meeting is one of Natural Pod spaces that we've impacted. And I see how it's being enjoyed and used. That just uplifts you through some of those navigating times where you go, this is hard. Being passionate and doing things differently is hard, but quite honestly, I don't think I would do it any other way.
I hear that. I think it's so good that you work in a space where you can easily walk into a physical environment and be inspired by those who use it. And there's so much value in being able to do that, as opposed to having a service where you can't always physically feel what's going on and how people are reacting. But with that said, what is next for Natural Pod? Where do you hope things go from here?
I think for me, obviously, I'm excited about impacting more learning environments and aligning in ways where impacting communities that are really trying to make a difference, particularly those that are fairly well underserved. I personally love that, seeing how that can uplift. I mean, often children, and this is quite a surprising fact for a lot of people, is that they're in their learning environments more than that they are in their own homes. So when you think about that, when they're actually in those spaces, to me, that's pretty important. Of course, we really want to expand the different offerings that we have. And as you know, we're really constantly informed by educators and what they're looking for. We're getting a lot of feedback recently about our library solutions. We've been working in a lot of libraries and common spaces with the focus of bringing in natural light and movability and obviously transcending more than just having it in a library space. Libraries now moving into more common spaces and collaborative spaces. So I'm pretty excited about that. Continually deepening our sustainability commitments, which is an ever-going practice day in, day out. What else can we do? And then really fostering deeper community engagement. For me and for the team here at Natural Pod, we don't see ourselves as a furniture company, but we see ourselves as a catalyst for change and advocacy around better learning environments, bringing in that beauty, bringing in that sustainability. And we do that by connecting with our community, being out in the world and hearing what's important to them, because they're there every single day. And I have to say, I have the deepest respect for our educational community. The fact that they can hold space sometimes between 15 to 30 kids in one learning environment, with all being unique learners, and then going home and doing that for their own families. I'm like, wow. Right. So I get a lot of feedback from them, but I want to figure out too, kind of something I'm excited about is how can I support them even further? what kind of like uplifting, energizing things that we can do. And I was really motivated by the recent conference retreat from B Corp here in Vancouver, because there was a lot of opportunity to actually have that retreat and have that empowerment. And I'm like, how do I bring that into educational spaces? How do I help these educators that are doing that? So there's a couple parts there. What's next for Natural Pod and what's next for me? But as you can tell, I'm a bit of a dreamer, and I love to disrupt things. And I'm always thinking about how can I do that, and then figure it out from there.
Oh, we love that. We need more of the like impact dreamers, right? Of from a dream or idea to actually making it a reality and into something that's really effectively impactful. And yeah, the echo of the B Corp retreat that we were both at, creating that space for wellness. I think what a controversial concept for a conference, right? That's very much business focused. And I had so many conversations at the conference about how this is so different. Maybe somebody's going to a tech conference, maybe somebody's going to a manufacturing conference, but we were also just sharing this idea that, that's not going to happen at those other conferences. But that idea of creating wellness spaces for individuals, for learners, for educators and others, like I think that is a profound and much needed piece of work or direction that I think is super interesting for you to explore. And I mean, certainly for others as well, because so often we just sort of like put wellness to the side until we need it and until we need to go to the doctor's office or deal with the healthcare system. But, how can we actually bring that into like our daily work? I think that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see how we can do more of that in these spaces, because ultimately would love for children and educators to be outside and enjoying the great outdoors. But if they are indoors, how do we bring that beauty in, right? How do we bring the outdoors in and bring that place where you can just really calm and reflect and relax, and then have that confidence and self-regulation to be able to learn and grow and be creative. And I mean, they are going to be our change agents of the future, and hopefully, making and disrupting some of the world that we're currently in now. But I did want to say that each and every day for us moving forward is my team. I'm so inspired by their dedication, and then of course, alongside our customers' enthusiasm, and then how we have the potential to truly leave a lasting legacy of environmental stewardship. And that is the ultimate thing that drives me each day, is that sense of community and connection, like we experienced at B Corp, like I experienced with my team, and like we see in the educational space. It does really take a true village around you or community around you to make amazing change, to feel supported.
Awesome, Bridgitte. And so just to wrap our conversation up, I'd love to hear, what advice you have for aspiring change makers, maybe entrepreneurs, maybe those that are working in companies. What advice do you have for them in diving in and embracing impact work?
I would definitely echo to really prioritize your passion and stay true to that. Know that you're not going to know everything that you need to know. So really reaching out in terms of mentorship and support, seeking others that may have done something similar, or others that you really admire and respect. Ask for help, right? But meanwhile, stay true to your values. And I would say, resilience is pretty important. And how do you personally remain resilient in the face of challenges? For those who know me and know me well, like I love dance and music and and often when I'm feeling stuck, I'll put on a tune and I'll just like move through it. So I break it down each and every day, find ways to fill my cup. It's not always easy. We talked about wellness, but at the end of the day, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you driven by that? And what impact do you want to leave in the world? That staying true to that and really paying attention to that is the part that I feel will really help you navigate when the waters get a bit rocky, right? And the ship's going a little bit off course, but you're going, we're still sailing through this, and there's going to be another wave. So get ready to grab whatever you got to get on that wave. But community and support for me has been tremendous. I feel very privileged to have a great group of mentors and community builders around me, such as yourself, Joanna, and know that I can reach out at any point and vice versa. I love to give back too. So just know if you're asking for help, you're also offering an invitation that people can come to you as well. So that giving and receiving as an entrepreneur has been remarkable for me.
Amazing, Bridgitte. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been such an inspirational conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been a real pleasure, and I love sharing this story and connecting with others, and I would say that for any of the listeners out there, if there's something that's inspired you today, or you have a question, know that, as I said, reaching out and supporting each other is a key thing. So don't be afraid to do that.
Thank you, Bridgitte. As we wrap up today's episode, we hope you're leaving with some insights, inspiration, and perhaps a spark of an idea. At the core of every story we cover lies the undeniable truth. What truly drives impact is the relentless pursuit of change, paired with a deep commitment to the greater good. We're always reminded that making a mark on the world is not easy and isn't just about breaking through barriers. It's about thinking differently about what impact means in our world and what is possible in creating it. Thank you for joining us on Ideas for Impact, where rebels with a cause redefine the meaning of what is possible. For more episodes that challenge the norm, follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're interested, dive deeper into our journey at ideasforimpact.ca. Until next time, friends, keep pushing the boundaries of what is possible.